going to do is, before we get started, I'm going to just show everyone quickly how we can upload our classwork, right? Because I got a ton of emails saying that you weren't able to upload your classwork, and I want to make sure everyone knows how to do that. So let's share my screen. All right. So if you're a student, this is the screen you'll see, right? And then here, let's say I want to submit assignment 2, right? So if you click here on assignment 2, you can go to view instructions, and here you'll get add or create button, right? So over here, you want to click on this and click on file. Right? Then you can click on browse, and you can find the Python file, right? So if I go to documents, find the Python file in here. All right, let's say this is some random uh, Python file that I want to submit. So I'll just press open, and it will submit the assignment for me, right? And then you can click on turn in. You can't submit work right now. Okay, so I might need to reopen the assignment to be for everyone to be able to upload to it. It looks like the due date was January 21st, which is why no one is able to upload it. So I'll just correct that in a second. Hmm, should be working. I'll close submissions here. Is this the same problem that everyone else was having?
Yes.
Okay, I'll look into it, but in the meantime, what you can do is just email me the assignment, right? All right, I'll look into why this is happening. All right, let's go to our topic for today. All right, so today we're going to dive deeper into data structures, right? So a quick reminder of what data structures are. Data structure is essentially a means for storing and organizing a collection of data values, right? So you can have a bunch of primitive data types stored within one data type, right? So the idea is to have a bunch of strings, booleans, and or numeric data types all within one nest, right? Or within a table, or however you would like to think of it, right? It's basically a collection of data, right? Each has their own set of methods or a defined action that can be performed on the data structure. Methods are called on a data structure using dot notation, right? So we had to look at some of these methods as well for sets, right? We had to look at the difference method, union method, and a bunch of other ones. So there are many different kinds of sets, many different kinds of data structures. We learned about sets, and there's also tuples, arrays, lists, dictionaries, and a whole bunch of other data structures, right? So the next one we're going to learn about is an array, right? So what is an array? An ordered collection of non-unique values that are all of a specified type and that are mutable, right? So let's break this down, right? So there's four keywords in the sentence. The first one is that they are an ordered collection. This means that the order in which you put in the elements in the array will maintain that order. And when you try to print it out, you will actually get the array that as it is, right? So for example, in this case, we define an array which was 3, 2, 1, and so on, right? And as you can see, when we print it out, it gets printed out in the exact same order. Similarly, they are non-unique. unlike a set, you can have multiple of the same value in an array, right? So for example, if we create an array which has a lot of ones, a lot of twos, and so on, print it out, we'll see that we get the exact same array and none of the repeated objects are omitted, right? As we saw in a set. Then they have to be of a specified type, right? So as you can see, before, when we define the array over here, there was also an I, right? In the inverted commas. So basically, I means that integer, right? And we're specifying that this array is of an integer type, right? So if I try to put in a Boolean value in this, it will give us an error, and I'll show you that in just a second. Then they're also mutable, right? So you can alter the values of the element in an array, right? So once you've defined an array, right, you can simply access the element of that array and change its value, right? Let's have a look at arrays. So let's create the first array. Let's call it my array equals array. And now you'll see when I wrote array, it got these red squiggly lines underneath, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to hover over that red squiggly line, and I want you to click this import array.array, right? Basically, what this does is it allows you to use array in your code. That's all you need to know for now. We'll learn more about importing packages in a later lecture, but for now, if you want to use array, you'll either have to write this in the first line, or you can do that automatically by hovering over the red squiggly line, right? Then in here, first we'll define the type we want, right? So if we want an integer, we'll say I, and then we'll write the actual array, right? So here we can say 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and yeah, we can have any number of integers here, right? And then we can try to print this array out. So as you can see, it was repeated, but it still showed up. And then you can also see that it retained its order, right? So the order in which we wrote the numbers is the order in which they came out. And then similarly, what we can do is, so let's say I want to access this element in the array, right? So this is the third element in the array, right? But in Python, what we do is we start the counting from 0, right? So the first element is actually the 0th element. Then we have the first element, then second, third, then fourth, and then fifth. So you just have to start counting at 0, right? And this is not code, this is just for reference. I'm going to make this a comment so we don't get confused. All right. So now what I can do is I can access the second element in this array. And how do I do that? Let's say I want to print it out. So I'll say my array, then I'll start these square brackets, right? And then this is the second element, right? So I'll say 2. If I print this out, this is the first print statement, right? This is what gets printed out here. And then when I print this one out, we get the second element, which is 21, right? And if I wrote 0 here, we would have gotten the first element like this, right? So is everyone clear on how we can access elements in an array? All right. So now what we can do is we can even change this number, right? So let's get rid of printing the whole array. So first we have my array 0, we print it out, right? Now what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to take this my array 0th element and I'm going to change its value to 100 or 1000, right? And now what I'll do is I'll print out my array, right? As you can see over here, the 0th element was 1, but after that we changed it to 1000, right? And then in line number 9, we print out the array again. And as you can see, this got changed, right? So not all data sets will allow you to change elements inside them in this fashion, but an array will allow you to do so. All right. Any questions so far? Great. So
Do you mind coming back on how you ended up with 1,000?
yeah, sure. So let's go back here. And just to make it a little more clear, I'm going to add another print statement here to print out the entire array, right? So let's go line by line, right? So first we're creating this array, right? And it will have
Mhm.
these values inside. Then we're
Yeah.
printing it out, right? Now in line number 8, what we do is we access the 0th element, which is this one, right? And we use the assignment operator to change its value to 1000, right? And after that, if we try to print the array, this value is now 1000, right? So if I try to print this, as you can see, this was the original array. And then in line number 8, I changed the first element to 1000. And after that, when I print it, you can see we have 1000 as the first element, right? So similarly, I can change another element as well. Let's say I want to change this 90 to just a 9. This is the 5th element in the array, right? So I'll do my array 5 equals 9, right? And if I print it out again, now you can see the 90 is now a 9 because I accessed that element and changed its value, right? Does that make sense?
Oh, okay. Okay, fine.
All right.
Yeah, it makes sense. Mm.
So as you can see, this is what I was mentioning. So you will have to import array from the array package, right? We'll learn more about packages in a later course, but you can simply just write this statement or the statement we have in the example I showed, right? Both of those work fine. Then what we just learned about was also accessing individual elements, right? So you start counting from 0 instead of 1, and then you can simply just access any of the elements, right? So if I want to access the 5th element, I'll say 4. If I want to access the 6th element, I'll say 5, and so on, right? I'm not sure what I was trying to write underneath this. Sorry about that. My Wi-Fi decided to die out. I'm going to just start sharing here again. Let me just make sure I'm still recording. Yeah, I'm recording. All right, so we were going to get into array methods next. All right, so the first method that we have is append. And what append does is it allows you to add a value to the end of your array, right? Then you have pop, which allows you to remove the last element of your array. Then you have insert, which allows you to insert a value at a specific index. Then you have remove, which allows you to remove a specific value. And then there's index, which returns the index of the value that you give it, right? So let's have a look at all of these. All right, so let's just use this array still, right? And what we're going to do next is append. Let's say I want to append a 10, right? And now if I print out my array, as you can see, we have a 10 added to the end, right? So append simply adds whatever you give it inside the bracket to the end of our list, right? Or sorry, to the end of our array. Then next, what we can do is we can also remove the last element. So I can say pop, right? And then if I print it out again, so at line number 11, you'll see the last element has now been removed, which was 10, right? Now let's see what's next. We have insert. So my array. So the first value you need to give it is the index at which you want this element to be placed. So let's say I want it to be placed between 21 and 3, right? So what will the index be? It will be 3. And then let's say the number I want to put in the middle is 100. If I print this array, as we'll see, 100 has now been added to the middle of the list at the index which we specified, right? The next one we have is remove. So what remove does is it allows you to remove a specific element from your array, right? So I can do remove, and then if I say 100 and print it out again, you can see the 100 has been removed, and it will only remove the first occurrence of that, right? So what do I mean by that? Now let's say if I had inserted it twice instead of just once, that means there are 200s in here now, right? So we added 200s, but when we remove 100, it only removes the first one, right? So as you can see, we're still left with 100. And if we want to remove that, we'll have to call the remove command again. Okay. Then the last one that we'll look at is the index, right? And that just simply returns the index that is of the element that you put in the bracket, right? So we can print out my array dot index, and then in here I can say, let's say 100, right? So it gives us back 3 because this 100 has an index of 3. Now, similar to the remove command, it will give you the index of the first occurrence of this value, right? So if you had two 100s in there, it would have given you the index of the first one. So I see there's a question. Please go ahead. All right. Maybe I answered it.
So
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know who's the question. Jinika. Jinika, you wanted to ask. I want after her.
Yeah, I I don't know if she wants to ask the question still.
Okay.
Okay.
My question, as she's coming up, my question is on the line number 13.
Yes, I'll look. Don't eat it. Just keep it. When I find another one, I'll keep it there.
Sorry.
Okay, sure. Okay, so I was saying, I was asking Gag, when you're printing out number 13, it did not come in an order like the way you said that. And okay, you remember how you said when you're printing out an array, it comes in the order that you've placed the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So how come when it's printing out in the output and for line number 13, it's starting with 103?
I'm not sure I completely follow your question, but so the
Okay.
append method adds it to the end of the list, right? So if I use the append
Yes, that's
method,
true.
then it will be append. But if I'm using the insert method, first I'm specifying the index, right? So this is the index I want the element to be at. And then the second number here is the
Okay. All right. Okay. Now I understand. So is it, if you wanted to insert two or more numbers based on their index and values, what would you do?
yeah, so you can insert as many as you like, right? So you can just keep calling insert functions over here. Let's say I want to insert something like the fourth place, right? I can just write 4, and then let's say I want to insert an 8. If I run this, you'll see 80 gets placed at the 4th place, right?
Oh, so you can put them in one sentence, no?
Um, I'm not sure, but there should be some way to do that. I'll leave that up to you to
Oh, okay.
research. Yep.
Okay.
So arrays
Fine.
have
Thank you.
more methods than the one I have just provided to you, right? So if you go online, you'll be able to find maybe even 50 or 60 methods on just arrays, because there are some really niche methods that, as you said, might be for specific cases, right? Then, all right, so Janika, did you still have a question?
Okay, so my question here is, apparently, is it that for the command or the function of the pop
Sorry, can you repeat that?
and the remove, do they place the same functionalities? Because from what we've done here in our command, when we try to remove 100, it seems they both removed the value 100.
I'm unable to hear you properly. Can you type out your question instead?
Okay, I said for the commands pop and remove,
Mhm.
do they play the same functions when you're writing this? Because apparently when we try to work with 100, they both did the same thing.
Yeah,
That
I
is, they
still
remove the
can't.
value 100.
I still can't hear you. Can you just read your question in chat real quick? Sorry about that.
Can you hear me, please?
Yeah, now I can.
Can you hear me? I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay, so I said for the functions of, the command pop and remove, do they play the same functions when we're writing this? Because apparently when we worked with the value of 100, they gave out the same prompting.
So which two? The remove and which other one?
The pop and
So
remove.
essentially they're the same thing, but there's one key difference, right? So pop cannot take any values inside here, right? So pop will always remove the last element of the array. Whereas what we're doing here is we're removing a particular value from the array, right?
Okay.
So the 100 that we specify in here, that is being removed when we say remove. But when we did the pop, it simply removed the 10 from the end, right? We didn't have to
Okay.
specify anything for pop.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right. So the next data structure we're going to look at is a dictionary. Right? So a dictionary is an unordered collection of key value pairs where values are mutable, but keys are not, right? So it is unordered and it consists of key value pairs, right? So it can be defined using curly brackets or using the dictionary constructor function, right? So let's have a quick look at this. So let's call it my dictionary equals, and then we can start it using curly brackets. Okay. And then in here, let's say my first key is, let's say my name, right? The value I want to store corresponding to this key is, let's say, is a teacher. Then we can have, let's say, Shanika. This can have a value of is a student. Right? One, say, then is a student. Right? So all your keys need to be unique, right? But your values can be the same. Right? So your keys can correspond to the same values, but values cannot correspond to the same key, right? And now how do we access data from this data structure, right? So what we can do is we'll write my dictionary, right? Then we start the square brackets. And then if you remember what we did in arrays, right? So we simply said 0, right? That would be for the first one. But instead in this, what we do is array Akshaan. Why do we do this? This means that this is the key and I want to get the value corresponding to this key, right? So if I try to print this out, let's see what happens. If I try to print this out, I get is a teacher, right? Which is the value corresponding to this key, right? So you can kind of think of it as like so you can kind of think of an array as a simplified dictionary, right? In which all the keys are numbers from 0, 1, 2, and so on, right? So let's have a look at what other methods are there in dictionaries. Yeah, so instead of indexing, values in a dictionary can be referenced by using their keys, right? So that's what we did, right? We used a key and we got the corresponding value, right? But if you check against a key that does not exist, right? So for example, in the example in the slide, we created a dictionary called the favorite color dictionary, right? And we have a bunch of names in there, but Jack is not a name in there. And if we try to call this name, we'll get a key error, right? Dictionaries can be nested such that the value of some key in your dictionary is itself a dictionary, right? So you can have a key corresponding to a value, and then that value can be a dictionary in itself, right? So for example, let's say I want to store information about a person, right? So we can create a nested dictionary for that. So let's say I want to create something called my info. Okay. Then first we provide the name. So I'll write my name down. Then we have the value. So now in the value, you can have a new dictionary, right? So now inside this dictionary, I can say profession, software engineer. You can have more values in here. Let's say I say age, and so on, right? You can simply have a dictionary within a dictionary. And even, let's say this value, if I really wanted to, even this could be a dictionary, right? And maybe I want to specify two professions in here. So I can say profession, say software engineer, and profession two. Teacher, right? So this is a completely valid dictionary. Now you might be thinking, how do I access this value, right, from the outside? So let's see. let's write the print statement first. Okay. Then we say my info. So the first key I need to access in order to get this dictionary, right, is this key. Right? So I access the Akshaan key, get the dictionary it holds as a value. Right? Now inside this dictionary, now we'll have to access this key in order to get the dictionary corresponding to this key. Right? So how do we do that? I simply say profession. So you can keep chaining square brackets like this if you have a nested dictionary, right? So now if I want the software engineer profession, I'll say profession in what say profession. If I run this code, I'll get software engineer. Okay? So this is how you can create a nested dictionary and access the values inside a nested dictionary. Okay. Any questions so far on what dictionaries are, what we're trying to do here? All right. So another thing you can do is you can add new key value pairs to a dictionary simply by calling them, right? So let's have a look at that. So let's say I wanted to add a new profession in here called profession 3, right? So what I can do is I can say my info, and I'll just copy this to make it a little bit. And then if I, for example, want to do profession 3, right? I want to introduce a new profession there. Let's say profession 3. Right? Now, right now you'll see this is giving us kind of an error, right? It says statement seems to have no effect, right? This is because we haven't assigned a value to this key yet. So let's say I want the new value to be dancer. I'm not actually a dancer, but let's say I did add that in and I print out my info. So as you can see, profession 3 has been added with the value of dancer. Okay. All right. So next we have dictionary methods. So dictionary also has a few methods, right? So first method we'll look at is the get method. This is nothing but the same as using square brackets to get your value, right? But this is a little more safe in the sense that if you provided a value that does not exist. For example, in this given example, Jane does not exist in the contacts dictionary. So what we can do is we can define a default statement that is printed out if we do not have this value present, right? So let's have a look at that. So clearly in my info, we don't have a profession 4 right now, right? So I'll just copy this again. Okay. And if on this I do dot get profession 4, and if I print this whole statement out, here I'll get none. Why? Because profession 4 does not exist within this dictionary, right? Now, what I can also do is in this get function, I can define a default value in case profession 4 does not exist, right? So let's say I want to say profession 4 does not exist, right? So if I run it now, this is the statement we get, right? So this is nothing but a default statement that we want. So is the get function here? Next up, we have the keys method, right? So what the keys method does is it will return a list of all the keys present in your dictionary, right? So let's have a look at that. So let's say print my info dot keys. If I run this, we get Akshaan, right? Because in the outer dictionary, there's only one key, which is Akshaan, right? It's actually not true. We also have the age key here. Why is that not showing up? Oh, I see. Okay, so this age is actually a part of the inner dictionary, right? So it's part of this dictionary. So if I, for example, let's say I do my info, Akshaan, right? And then I do dot keys, then I'll get the keys of everything that is inside this dictionary. Right? If I run this, I get profession and age, right? And then I can keep going further. Let's say I want to check for profession. And if I run this, I'll get profession 1, profession 2, profession 3. We just added profession 3 in this line, which is why it shows up. Right? Similarly, we can also get a list of all the values, right? So if I just copy the statement, and instead of keys, I just say values. It will just give us a list of all the values in there. So what are the values in there? We have software engineer, teacher, dancer, right? And the last one we have is items, right? So it returns a list of tuples representing the key value pairs, right? So a tuple is something we learn about in a later lecture, but for now, all you need to know is tuples are a set of, is a data structure that contains two values, and it can easily be used to represent key value pairs, right? So I'll leave this items one for now, and I'll let you try it out on your own time once we learn about tuples. These are some additional references for arrays and dictionaries and some dictionary exercises. I'll be uploading this and the previous lecture slides together. I was a little ill last week, that's why I wasn't able to upload. But that should conclude today's lecture. That's a little bit earlier than usual, but are there any questions? It looks like everyone understood it.
Okay, please, do you mind going over the dictionary set again?
Yeah, sure. So which part?
Like just re-explaining it so that I'll be sure I got everything. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep. So let's have a look again, right? So let's create a more simple dictionary. Let's call it my dictionary equals, and then I'll specify a bunch of names with their colors, right? So I'll say blue, write some random names, Jack. Let's say this guy actually has like a classification for his color. So let's say he wants to do cool color. His favorite color is blue. It's a warm color. His favorite color is red. Let's say, right? So we've just created a dictionary which contains a data structure which informs us about the favorite colors for each of these people, right? Now, what we can do is we can simply just print this dictionary out if you want. Here we'll see the same exact dictionary, right? Then what we can do with this dictionary is we can access elements, right? So if I say my dictionary and then John, And if I print this statement out, it will give us red because John's favorite color is red. Right? Similarly, if I do Jack, right, this, and Jack actually gives us another dictionary because he has a preference for two colors, right? So cool is blue and warm is red. Right? So now, how do we access this nested dictionary? Let's say I want the cool color, right? So what I will do is I'll add another square bracket over here, and I'll say cool. Now, if I run this, you'll see I get blue, right? Why? Because first we use the key Jack, right, which gives us this dictionary, and then within this dictionary we use the key cool, which gives us blue. Right? So that's what dictionaries are generally used for, and there are some methods that describe. If you have questions on any of those, let me know. Does that help you a little bit?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I would recommend that you actually mess around with it on your computer as well a little bit, and maybe that will actually help you understand these a little bit better, right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'll stop recording here.